Okay, welcome back. Let's begin. Volume, it's on. Okay, let's begin. Thank you very much. So we're going to begin segment 2 of the debate, and this involves questions from the community. We have received questions from audience members and from community members who have texted us questions who are watching us. So we'll begin. The first community question will begin with Mayor Navarro. We will follow the same format. The person who begins the question will have a 3-minute opportunity to answer. We will have a 2-minute rebuttal and then another 2-minute follow-up. So the question that we want to begin with Mayor Navarro, if I can read everybody's writing here. What role does workforce housing play in the life of St. Helena? And how should city and the business community work together on this issue?
The business community and the city?
Correct.
Okay. Boy, this is a complicated question. Workforce housing is an actual definition that doesn't exist in terms of the state, in terms of regulated housing. Affordable housing is a typical term used by the state, and it means subsidized housing in most cases through ABAG and so on and so forth. Workforce housing, I believe, is a term that was coined by here in St. Helena to mean sort of that group of folks that make perhaps too much money to qualify for the affordable housing opportunities, but not enough money to buy $1 million house in St. Helena. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't know how exactly to answer the problem of housing. I have talked to other municipalities up and down this valley, as well as the South Bay and other areas, and I haven't heard anybody answer that question adequately yet. It's something that we have to keep working at. I think the city and the business community should work together and engage in conversations and in ways to ensure that as we grow our city in terms of businesses and employees, that we're working together on a better understanding of what that's going to mean to the impact to our city, either through additional commuters or the lack of housing that we have. Most residents that I speak to don't want hundreds and hundreds of more homes, no matter what level, built in St. Helena. They feel that it will be crowding. I think people feel there'll be more traffic and parking issues, and that with the flag lots in certain parts of town, we're already pretty crammed in. So, can we build housing for everyone who wants to live here and work here? No, we absolutely cannot. But at 9% of regulated housing, that's the ratio of regulated versus housing units, we are tied with Yountville as the number 1 municipality in the county for having affordable housing available. And so I'm sorry that I don't have the answer. All I can tell you that as mayor and with the city council, I will continue to work with businesses as they come into town and look at more employees coming in to the area so that we can work on solutions. But I actually don't have an answer to workforce housing at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, do you have the answer or some ideas?
Well, I have some ideas, but I certainly wouldn't. Sorry about that. I have some thoughts, but to say I have solutions would be saying too much. First of all, to me, affordable housing, for all practical purposes, is rental housing, and it's income regulated. Workforce housing is housing that seeks to attract and hold, for example, our city employees who may well earn too much to qualify for income regulated affordable housing. Other cities have certainly worked hard at workforce housing over the years, including, I believe, the city of Napa. Our big problem is the lack of a funding source that enables us to push forward with workforce housing. I know that Mr. Vondra suggested in the newspaper the possibility of a transfer tax. That sounds interesting to me. I think he suggested a 1% transfer tax when people sell their homes, and have that go into a fund and then see where we can go with workforce housing. I don't know whether that's legally permissible at this point, but certainly it struck me as an idea worthwhile to explore. And that's me. I'm open to ideas from others as we seek to address this very difficult problem for us, and we need to address it because it's not a good for many of our city employees to be commuting into the city, and we can see the consequences of what might happen to us from the recent earthquake in Napa. You want key city employees to be close by, especially in the case of an emergency. This is a long-term problem. It's going to take a lot more thinking, but I'm willing to work with anybody in the community that has an idea that would push it forward.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, a response?
Yes, the transfer tax was suggested by Councilmember Scolati. I also read it in the newspaper, and I think it's definitely something to look at. I don't know the details of it. I haven't done the research on it myself, but I think it's absolutely something we should stay open-minded toward. I would also look at simple things like additional transportation. You know, any place I've ever lived in the country, there's always been commuter issues. There's particularly expensive places. There's just not enough housing right adjacent to where the work is. You take Manhattan, Boston, any place. People commute in from Brooklyn, and people commute in from, South Boston to get there. And so I think we need to look at additional transportation and need to do that with NCTPA, more rapid transportation opportunities. However, Napa used to have plenty of workforce housing, and now that they're enjoying more economic success, they now are having the same workforce housing problem because the prices of their housing has gone up, and so now they're looking for ways to bring in folks from other areas as well where the housing costs are a little bit more affordable. So, you have success, and so you have an increase in housing prices. That's an issue that affects most municipalities. It's a difficult one because the solution is to not have economic success so that we don't have high cost of housing. It's really a complicated issue. I do want to say, though, just as a plug for our employees, with the earthquake, we had our wastewater inspected within 1 hour and checked. Our streets, our city buildings were checked for safety. Our police had patrolled departments. Our fire department had responded to Napa with an engine. And I could not be more proud of the immediate and rapid response of our city employees in the aftermath of that earthquake.
Thank you very much. The second community question is going to Mr. Galbraith, and it's specifically addressed to you. Alan, you said in the debate hosted by the League of Women Voters that you were not an advocate of council's adoption of the vacation rental ordinance, and further, that you do not want to see the number of permits expanded. Would you take it further? And would you move to repeal the ordinance and rescind existing permits?
The answer to that is no, as much as I would like to. We need to move forward and not backward. The City Council made the decision to award those permits, and so be it. I was the lone consistent dissenter on that. I think my position was right. It was consistent with the approved housing element. It was consistent with the land use element. But the City Council, in its wisdom, went in a different direction. Having done that, we need to move forward, not backward. Now, having thought about it more, I must say there's one caveat in the position with further learning that I would make, and that is I don't think I have an objection to short-term rentals where the homeowner actually lives in the house. That, to me, is quite different from short-term rentals, which are turning over without the homeowner in the house. And I think to a neighbor of mine who complained bitterly about it, saying, if I wanted to live next to a hotel, I would have bought a house next to a hotel. And that is the strong residential attitude that I've experienced through the city. But we are where we are. We've got other issues. We need to move forward. And as long as we're not getting huge complaints into the city, even though I certainly hear them, I'm not prepared to revisit the issue at this point in time. There are other things we need to do first.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, a rebuttal?
I'm not sure if it's a rebuttal. The vacation rental ordinance went through due process. We had multiple public hearings, and our city community was able to speak and write in and voice their opinion, as they should, on that particular ordinance. We drafted one, and just to be sure that we didn't forget about it or let it go by the wayside or have it turn into a mess, we built in a 1-year review of that ordinance so that we would force ourselves to go back, review that ordinance, and see how it was working. If you never try anything, then as a leader, you are stagnant. Putting together an ordinance that allowed our community ways to help supplement their own home costs or provide others an opportunity to experience St. Helena and bring TOT into the city, we tried it. And we built in our own correction, possibility. And when we reviewed it, we didn't have a lot of complaints. In fact, we really had none. People were pretty pleased with it. I have not heard a lot of complaints about the living next to a hotel at all. I haven't heard any, actually. And I think that that's exactly what we should do as leaders. Try something. Don't worry about making a mistake every single time. This is not concrete on the ground. An ordinance can be changed and adjusted, and that's what our role is. I don't agree with the expansion of the number of units. I think we're good to go, and we should go another year before we again take a look at it and see how it's working.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, do you have a response?
No.
Okay, we're going to move forward with the third question from the community, and we're going to begin with Mayor Navarro. What are your priorities regarding traffic control on Highway 29, specifically south of the high school, also including the county territory?
The county territory down how far?
Wherever the traffic backs up.
So American.
you
okay,
choose
so
which day.
Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and begin with American Canyon then.
Yeah.
American Canyon, get your lights fixed so that they all turn green at the same time on 29. Now that we've solved that problem, let's move on to south of the high school, I guess, south of St. Helena. Traffic control is an interesting thing. Recently, we voted to put a new light in at Grayson. I was the lone vote that said no on that. Lights slow down traffic. We all know that. Any traffic expert knows that. The Pope Street and Mitchell lights, that double light, weirdo light there, slows traffic down. Adams Street slows traffic down. And we know this because before we get to those lights, we can be sailing along. And then we're very, very slow. And after we get beyond that light, we move along. And the opposite is coming the other direction. I don't think you can't have lights in town, but I think we can do a better job of synchronization. Perhaps we can turn them off when we're not in the height of traffic. I have often suggested, and maybe it's because of my background, but a police officer, at the critical junctures, during the height of traffic times, turn the lights off, get an officer out there part-time directing traffic through the city of St. Helena, so that it isn't a matter of wait and stop and that kind of thing, and we have someone with some competency moving traffic through there. Another thing that will help is the new middle lane that's going to be put in by Caltrans. You all know, I hope, that in 2017, Caltrans is repaving Highway 29 from Me Lane, and there will be a center turn lane, which will allow people to get out of the way when they're turning onto Grayson or other side streets and allow the flow of traffic to continue through St. Helena. So I think we should, I'm not a fan of lights. I know people are talking about rotaries. They're not roundabouts. I come from Boston, and we call them rotaries in the United States. And, I just think that the right-of-way issues are too great. They need too much room. We have the wine train. We have buildings built right up to the sidewalk level. And so I think that we should look at traffic lights, turning them off, reducing them, and certainly consider hiring, for the good of the community and the business community, police officers or traffic control people at high traffic times. White gloves, of course, on a little stand with a whistle.
Okay.
Naturally.
Well, for a city that asserts it's strapped for money, it seems to me we're going to have to rely on traffic lights and not on hiring a police officer to direct traffic. That's why we have traffic lights. I was chair of the Napa County Grand Jury in 2013, 2014, and I was so lucky because I was going down to Napa as all that traffic was coming up, and I was coming up as all that traffic was coming down, sometimes actually stalled around Rutherford and Oakville, just a massive parking lot in the other direction in the late afternoon. And wow, was I thinking we need to figure out some way to get cars off the road. How do we go about it? Well, it's clearly a regional problem. It's clearly a problem for the Transportation Planning Agency, the NCTPA. But there's some things that need to be done. We have to figure out a way to get more people into those wonderful buses and out of their cars. We need to persuade businesses that they should be moving their workers, whether in the wineries or in the hospitality businesses, up and down the valley in van pools so they can get to their destinations. Long term, I'm interested in the work that's going on in terms of a light rail system to see whether that might eventuate. Now, admittedly, that's long term. And I also think we're going to be faced with, but it's a good thing, as the Vine Trail moves forward with more people coming to St. Helena on their bikes. And I really look forward to that. I'm a cyclist myself, and I think that's a very good thing. But certainly, as mayor, I'm going to do all I can to think about this problem and to see what I can do to push the NCTPA into making progress with respect to it.
Great. Okay, Mayor Navarro, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. I was addressing just the area south of St. Helena. I don't think that we're going to solve the whole valley problems with those suggestions of lights and rotaries. NCTP is conducting a traffic study right now, a county-wide traffic study. They're working on that report, and the hope is that that report will then lead to some very clean and clear results, or at least some results on how to manage traffic in this valley. It's not going to be easy no matter what, but hopefully that extensive study will have some good results. The St. Helena shuttle, let's just point to that. We took the St. Helena shuttle, we revised the schedule. It's now a call for appointment. We have increased ridership, I think 60%, some remarkable percent since we've done that. Call for a ride, for $1, you get where you want to go. For $1, you get home. Pretty unbelievable. So that can be used by visitors and residents alike, and we know that it's working. So things like that make sense when they make sense. Streamlined buses. I am a huge fan of rapid transit buses up and down the valley, and they don't have to come on 29. They can come up up the trail, smaller buses with smaller amounts of people, dropped off at each of the city locations, and then a city shuttle, just like we already have, picking people up from the trail and bringing them back into the cities, to the downtowns at Yountville, at Calistoga, at St. Helena. I'm throwing out ideas here. I came from a mass transit world. I grew up in Boston. I took the train to school. I understand how it can work when it's done right. And I think that Napa has the opportunity now with this new project to really roll their sleeves up and get into it. And I think the community is not going to put up with this traffic much longer, and the pressure will be to find some kinds of solutions, no matter how painful they are.
Getting the horses to drink. Is
Getting
that
the
correct?
horses to drink. Yep.
Thank
if you
you
keep
very
them
much.
thirsty long enough.
Okay, the fourth question from the community, again, is directed for Mr. Galbraith. You mentioned that you would investigate the lessons learned from the robbery. Do you feel that safety was not properly handled? And do you know what review has or has not already taken place?
You know, I'm not going to pass judgment on what has happened. What seems to me should happen is that there should be a strong after-action report, and a strong after-action report should then be vetted by people who are expert in policing. And I don't know whether there are lessons to be learned or there are not lessons to be learned, but I think we need to go through that process. There's obviously concern in the community as to what happened and how it was handled. I don't know whether it's a valid concern or not a valid concern, but let's let the facts get out on the table, and then I would strongly suggest, I'm hoping there will be a strong after-action report by the police department, and that it would then be subject to review, including by people who are expert in this area, which I am not.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, rebuttal?
Yes, I am very proud of our police department. Our response time to that crime was under 1 minute from the time the call was received at dispatch. It's a complicated issue when there are guns on Main Street, and nobody wants to take the chance of having anyone hurt over some lost items. And so, you know, the parties in play made decisions that worked for them and for the safety of their employees. I'm not going to get into that detail because I think it's inappropriate to do so. I will say that I, myself, the city manager, and the chief of police met with the jewelry store owners that very same day. The business community was concerned, and so I called for a meeting of the Chief Rubin to meet with the business owners and to go through tips on how to stay safe, any information on what to do, any kind of guidance and training that they were looking for. It was attended by, I think, 10 business owners, maybe 12, and I certainly was there. I thought the chief did a great job. I also asked her to come here and report minute by minute, second by second, what happened that day. She did that. I would encourage anyone who's interested in getting an exact report of what happened and how they handled that situation to watch the council meeting. It is extremely detailed and very, very informative. Again, these criminals have likely been in Santa Rosa and all kinds of municipalities around the area. They have not been caught. Even despite one of them being shot, they still got away. So I don't think we can point to our police force who answered the call in under a minute and say, how could they possibly have gotten away? I think we have to realize that our police force was there and they will not stop until they find these criminals.
Thank you very much. Mr. Galbraith, you can respond to that, or
Yeah,
we can
just
move on to another
very
community
briefly.
question.
I have
Go
the
ahead.
highest respect for our police force, absolutely, and for our police chief. That's not the point. The point is that when we have a serious incident, whether it's in the police department or elsewhere, there should be a thorough report, and it should be peer-reviewed. And the point is not to criticize anybody. The point is to see whether in the future there are lessons that we can learn, and maybe there are none here. I just don't know because, as I said, I'm not expert. But let's not fear having a good review of what happened when something like this occurs to us. Let's welcome it. And I would hope the police department would welcome it. And that's not the basis of any criticism whatsoever. In the context of practicing law over 30, 40 years, I was peer-reviewed regularly. I welcomed it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the fifth question from the community. So we'll begin with Mayor Navarro. Excuse me. How do
I
you
look
feel,
that bad, Mr. Navarro?
Mayor Navarro? How do you feel about annexing Meadowood to the city of St. Helena?
Annexation is a very complicated question. It requires people a lot more well-versed in the whole thing than I am. What I feel strongly about is that the sphere of influence study should be done. The sphere of influence study for municipalities should be done about every 5 years. We have not had one since 2008, so we are overdue. The third party, LAFCO group, will use standard requirements and criteria to determine the sphere of influence and where it may make sense for boundaries to be changed. That process needs to happen. And I will strongly work toward making that happen. It's a third-party evaluation. It needs to happen. We are overdue. At that point, I will work collaboratively with any and all parties involved to make sure that the final result makes sense for everyone. We can't ignore the process because we're afraid of what financial impacts might affect one entity or another. We owe it to our community, we owe it to all parties to make sure that the government is following due process, making sure that that sphere of influence study happens, and then using that data to engage in conversations that make the most sense for the community. So that's what we need to do. We need the data first, and from that point forward, we need to look at what Meadowood wants, at what the study says, what Meadowood wants, what the county wants, what the city wants, and come collaboratively to a conclusion that makes sense for everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly agree with the mayor. It's a very complicated issue, and I don't pretend that I understand the legal details. Here's what I would say about it. If you're going to expand the city limits, then you have to also look at what the costs are that you're taking on. We're a full-service city. If we expand, as the chamber question said, down south to Zinfandel Lane or wherever, we're also taking on huge further costs and service responsibilities. And at this point, with our staffing, I'm concerned that we couldn't take it on. Beyond that, before I would move forward, I would really want a true legal analysis as to whether the county can or cannot veto the issue. It's obvious that the county is going to resist it. And why is it obvious? Because the county provides enormous services that benefit everybody in the county, including the jail, the sheriff, health services, inspection services, and so forth. And the county is in a position with the Ag Reserve that it can't and won't go out and raise additional revenue. So you're asking the county to give up revenue, and if you ask the county to give up revenue, then they're going to ask you, what services should we curtail? And then are you really going to push it forward, as your question suggested at this time, when the county is reeling from the earthquake damage in the city of Napa? The county office building won't be open till the beginning of the year. The smaller office building on 2nd Street is red tagged. So this is not an issue even diplomatically you could or would want to raise with the county at this point in time, I don't think.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. I'm focused on the city. I understand that the county focuses on the county needs. Our jurisdiction lines don't really cross. We are working together, and we do work together, but my focus is on this city. We already provide Meadowood and South St. Helena with water, our precious water. They are in need of wastewater treatment service. A resort is not a wastewater treatment place, and they need some assistance with that. We are the first responders for fire. We're the closest. The Cal Fire Station is way up toward Calistoga. So our guys get to Meadowood first. Our guys get to South St. Helena first. Yet we're not considered covering them. Our PD is the closest, and we can be the first responders to them. So I would say that the city is already doing a lot to help maintain those two areas, that needs to be taken into consideration in terms of how it affects us, the residents of St. Helena, our water supply. And I think that it is only fair to move forward with a third-party independent evaluation to look at the facts and the data and their opinion, and then begin discussion. If we hide our heads in the sand and we never look at the tough problems, or we say, gosh, you have these issues going on now, well, they also have a $200 million a year budget, and we have a $9 million a year budget, then we're never going to move forward. It's my job as mayor to continue to look for ways to make St. Helena better.
Thank you. The last question of this segment of community questions will begin with Mr. Galbraith, and in fact it specifically asks a question of you. You served on both the Water and Housing Committees. The Water Committee determined that St. Helena's water supply is limited and vulnerable. The Housing Committee concluded that the only feasible way to add affordable housing would be through large development. How do you reconcile these very different and conflicting points?
Well, first of all, let me be clear. And that is the Housing Committee, at the end of the day, was looking at 28 units, or 30 units. The issue there is whether we have the water reserves that could be made available for affordable housing. Whether it's 6 units, 10 units, or more units, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, do we have the water available? It's obviously a social purpose to make the water available for affordable housing as we can. And the Safe Yield Committee fixed the safe yield of the system at, I think, 1,950 acre-feet. The good news is that our average over the last 5 years has dropped below that. And so we do have some room for supplying some water for affordable housing or for other municipal purposes, whatever it might be. This is obviously going to be the subject of real discussion in the City Council, but not for huge numbers of housing units. That's for sure too. So we need to see how our water situation continues to develop. This year, water consumption seems to be dropping even further. My guess is it's on the industrial side, on the residential side, and it could be that if we had a water conservation coordinator, as the outside consultants have recommended for years, and we took a close look at industrial and commercial use, there'd be potential for further water savings. And quite frankly, I wouldn't rule out, if you had a person on staff, that person also might be looking out for new sources of water. What caught my attention this year was how dependent American Canyon was on the State Water Project, but how they also were able to go out and get other water to supplement State Water Project water. And I believe, especially once the new pumping station comes online at Dwyer Road, that we will have the pumping capacity to bring more water up if we can find it. Now, again, there are also rate implications that are involved that have to be studied, because if we do get new water, I certainly don't want it to be at the expense of a further rate increase on our customers. But at the same time, there may be projects which can use the incremental water, which can bear the burden. For example, a new hotel project. So these are all very complicated, interrelated issues. Now, with respect to Adams Street, just to go back to that, the mayor referred to it at the beginning. What happened there was that the City Council authorized RFPs on a small portion of the Adams Street property. The Planning Commission, which I was chaired at the time, undertook to evaluate them. We did that at the specific request of Mayor Britton. We evaluated and sent back to the City Council, thinking that they would proceed with a selection when they took the position that none of them met the terms of the RFP, which of course they knew when they referred it to the Planning Commission for evaluation. That was the difficulty there. Thank you.
Mayor Navarro, rebuttal.
Sure. I think our water supply is something that we have to be careful of. We are lucky to have a leading edge water model in this city. For our tiny little city, we have a water model program that is probably unsurpassed in the state, which is kind of crazy, but we're lucky because we had good folks working on it. And that will help us plan for the future. We need to be smart, and we need to make sure that we make decisions carefully. Large scale anything doesn't really ring well in my ears. I don't care if it's large scale housing. I don't think if it's apartments or 100 houses or a huge hotel. I don't think we need to be doing large scale anything, not just because of our water, but also because it doesn't fit the character of our city. We listened to the community when they said they wanted small infill housing projects. And we have 2 that are ongoing right now. Larry Turley was generous enough to donate the Pope Street property, and Calistoga Affordable Housing is handling that project. We're working with him on that. We have an appointment next week, actually, to continue to look for the gap funding that we need. And we also have the McCorkle property, which we purchased. People talk about affordable housing, but this council stepped up and took action in both of those. We used the money that had been sitting in there for a long time to actually purchase land, which everyone says is the biggest barrier. And both of those will be small infill projects. So, you know, I think that we need to be careful with our water. I think we need to do sensible projects, try to stay water neutral, and make sure that the balance of everything we do makes sense, that we're not doing too much of one housing, too much commercial, too much of this. We need to really stay balanced and stay ahead of the game in terms of properly utilizing the water that we have. And thanks, St. Helena community, for cutting water losses so that we have more to work with.
Thank you.
Cutting water use.
Thank you very much. So we're going, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Galbraith, you have a response.
Oh, just briefly, you know, the mayor voted against the acquisition of the McCorkle property, and I thought she was right to do so because there was no feasibility study at that point in time, and that was 1.5 years ago. I recall vividly that the city manager said that it would be moving forward in 6 months, and nothing has happened since. And if I'm mayor, I believe the council and the mayor have a fiduciary duty before they make a substantial purchase to have a feasibility study to ensure that the objective of what you're trying to do can be met and can be met within a reasonable period of time. So that's that's the way I proceed. I proceed on the basis of strong documentation indicating at least there's a good chance you can proceed. At this point, we have no evidence that there is. It's been sitting there for 1.5 years and nothing has happened despite the promise of the city manager that it would have moved forward within 6 months. With respect to the Pope Street property, the issue there is a large funding gap, and the question is whether the city's going to bite the bullet and basically meet that gap, because I don't believe, could be proven wrong, but I'm skeptical, especially after the earthquake, that the other funding sources are going to be there for that project to proceed. And I listened to Mr. Turley back in May basically saying that that project was not possible to finance unless the city really stepped up to the plate.
Thank you both very much. We are going to conclude the segment 2 of the debate, the mayoral debate, which included the community questions, and we're going to move on to the candidates' closing statements. According to a coin toss that we did earlier this evening, we're going to begin the closing statement with Mayor Navarro, and each candidate is going to answer this question. St. Helena's economy is dependent upon and influenced by the wine industry and tourism. There seems to be a growing sentiment towards drawing a line in the sand between tourism and quality of life. The Chamber believes not only that these can successfully coexist, but that it is crucial to find the common ground for St. Helena's economic vitality. How do you intend to change the discourse from animosity to collaborative?
What is the time I have? I'm sorry.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Oh, okay. So to find common ground, we first need to get agreement on what downtown should look like. By defining the mix of preferred businesses that serve residents and visitors alike, I think we can accomplish a lot of things. And the City Council called for a meeting to do just that. It's our role to lead that discussion and make that happen. if we get that model in place, we can begin to not only encourage, but actively recruit businesses that we want to see in our city. Right now, I think businesses feel like if they put their toe in the water at St. Helena, they might get burned. The city can play a role in encouraging those businesses by adding incentives for preferred uses on Main Street. So if it's part of the model, I'll tell you what, your permitting will be easier. You'll have a priority on your review. And if you rent to people that are businesses that are in this model, it'll be easier for you. Maybe that will help property owners better understand that it isn't all about just getting the biggest dollar they can. Taking the route of finding the right businesses in those properties will be easier for them, and that their tenancy will be a much more enjoyable placement. The community will know what to expect, and businesses will come in feeling welcome instead of having been battered through a series of appeals processes and the community being upset. And then I do believe in the free market. Once the businesses are here, let the best sandwich shop succeed. Let the best products sold do well. Let the best restaurants with the best service do well. I do not believe that the free market defines what the city of St. Helena downtown looks like. I do not. I think we need to define that. But once that's defined and businesses come in, then let the free market determine how those businesses succeed or not. It is the American way. And it keeps prices down, it keeps products better, and it offers the best things to people who are using the stores. Getting agreement on that, let me tell you something, this is not going to be easy. I don't even begin to say, we'll have a meeting, we'll all decide what downtown's going to look like, and we're off and running. But we need to stay tenacious with this. We need to get this done. And I think that balance is the key word. We need to balance the competing interests. Again, residents care about the products that are sold and the prices they're sold for. Who doesn't want to shop on Main Street and get a shirt for $12? Well, maybe not everybody, but it's something that people care about, the prices and the products. Businesses, they have to make money. It's economic feasibility for them. They have to be able to pay their rent and make money and stay in business. And property owners, we can't deny them the chance to make money off their own property by telling them, they can only rent to cobblers because that's what the community wants. They have to be able to rent to businesses that also bring in revenue to them. So it won't be easy, but we need to lead that discussion. This question, like all our issues, is complex. It requires time and experience, and to fully understand how to navigate them. After 4 years as an elected official, I have the experience to do that. I have the dedication to do that. I am balanced, and I have an excellent rapport with city staff. The city council, each member of the city council endorses me, as does every mayor up and down the valley. And while they may not be the previous mayors of the city of St. Helena in years gone by, they are the ones that we will be working with the council and mayors today in leading Napa Valley.
Thank you, Mayor Navarro. Mr. Galbraith, you have a 4-minute opportunity to present an answer to the question.
Again, because my answer is more precise, I hope, to the question.
That is very fair, and I will. St. Helena's economy is dependent upon and influenced by the wine industry and tourism. There seems to be a growing sentiment toward drawing a line in the sand between tourism and quality of life. The Chamber believes not only that these can successfully coexist, but that it is crucial to find the common ground for St. Helena's economic vitality. How do you intend to change the discourse from animosity to collaborative?
All right. First, at the outset, let me thank the Chamber for holding this wonderful forum. As mayor, my door will be open to all the people of St. Helena. I will listen, I will be inclusive, and I will be transparent. We need productive conversation that brings results. In thinking about the Chamber's closing question, I recalled the fine report of the Economic Outlook Study Group, which was a joint product of the Chamber of Commerce and the City of St. Helena, perhaps 5 years ago. The report makes a couple points that are widely accepted, I think. The dominant industry is wine, and we want that industry to thrive, obviously. We all acknowledge that the wine industry is the engine that drives the Napa County economy. The second point it makes is that tourism is the second industry, and the report states, a thriving wine industry attracts and depends on tourism, especially high-value, low-impact visitors who appreciate and enhance the local lifestyle. And the report's first conclusion was, keep wine business in focus, symbiotic relationship between wine and tourism. On the other side, what about residential attitudes? We residents most value our lifestyle here in St. Helena. We feel ourselves, I think, to be exceptionally fortunate. But I think we all understand that our economic vitality and lifestyle depend on visitors who continue to come here to enjoy the wine, the natural beauty, and the wine country lifestyle. St. Helena is the destination city in Napa County, and certainly we should try to keep it that way. So the issue, as I ponder the Chamber's question, comes down to how we minimize conflict between our quality of life and the impacts on us from our visitors. And as I was doing it, I was thinking about traffic and water. In prior discussion, I went through what I saw in terms of how we might work to minimize the traffic impacts. Here, all I would add is if we can make some progress on traffic congestion, it will go a long way toward building common ground between tourism and our quality of life. Water. Our residential community is worried about the security of our future water supply. A curtailed water supply affects quality of life. Many of our residents bought their homes because they enjoy their gardens. They do not want commercial growth cutting into their water supply. And here the answer is twofold. First, as I perhaps previously mentioned, we need to hire a water conservation coordinator who seeks out water conservation opportunities, including among our industrial and commercial customers. We also need to educate our residents on our water situation. It's a constant process to do that. And then just a couple of other quick points. We must focus on infrastructure projects that are a benefit to both residents and visitors. My view of it is that new downtown sidewalks will vastly improve downtown visual experience for both visitors and residents alike. And also new landscaping on the south entry to the city upon conclusion of the undergrounding project will also improve the visual experience for both visitors and residents. And so my conclusion is that the answer to the Chamber's question lies in good planning and in the confidence of the community that we are planning well. And just a final comment, I would make the point that I do have the endorsement of our local supervisor, Diane Dillon. I'm thrilled with that endorsement. And I do have the endorsement of 4 former mayors, Lowell Smith, Adi Hain, Greta Erickson, Frank Toller. And to me, that's exceptionally important because they know St. Helena and they know we need to move forward, and they have confidence in my leadership that I can do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alan Galbraith, Madam Mayor. We thank you both very much for your time, your earnest answers, and you both get gold stars for adhering to our strict time process tonight. You were very easy to work with. Tk you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take about an 8-minute break. We'll see you back then. 8-minute break.